Good morning. Thank you for joining the Northeast Inner breakout room. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank
All right,
you.
awesome.
Um,
Just want to make sure I'm in the right place. So this is the one. This is northeast inner. Is that what?
correct.
Okay.
Is
And
that the
that one
area
is
that you're
this.
interested in?
Yeah, this is the one. This is the one that includes like central that corridor, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in the right place. Yeah, no, I was
Okay.
earlier. I was on the north in the Nemo one, and it
Oh,
took me a second to realize that was not it.
okay, understood. Well, if you were in the NEMA one, the first few slides will be consistent with that information. So I'm happy to go through those again, or if you would like me to skip ahead a little bit, you can tell me where you left off since it's just the two
Yeah,
of
yeah,
us
yeah.
for the sake
No,
of time, or you want
yeah,
me to
you
go
can
through?
totally skip over those first shared slides.
Okay,
Just if you could just skip to the part where like it gets to I guess central specific, that would be pretty informative.
of course. So this is where it begins going through the Northeast Inner Plan geography in a little bit more detail. Is this okay if I start here?
Please.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so you heard the overview slides, and now we're kind of getting into the Northeast Inner Community Area Plan in more detail. So you can see the table of contents on the screen here. And other plans, they'll have the same content and same organization. They're just tailored a little bit per geography, of course.
Okay.
So each plan really begins with an overview of the area's profile, and this includes a summary of projected residential units as well as new jobs and a comparison of local demographics to citywide demographics. So that's kind of the information that you'll see in the first section of the plan. The next chapter really outlines the geography's greatest needs and prioritized goals. So the needs are focused on increasing access to housing choices, job opportunities, daily goods and services, as well as reducing environmental impacts. So the plans focus on those four needs because those are metrics that were identified in the comprehensive plan as paramount for ensuring that future growth really does benefit as many people as possible. So the 10 comprehensive plan goals, they were linked to these four metrics. And if a metric scored less than 5, the associated goals were identified as priorities within that geography. So the caveat here is, of course, all of the goals are important, but this prioritized list really helps with the prioritization of, dollars and resources when it comes to future development. So you can see here the Northeast Inner Geography's greatest need is increased access to housing choices. Chapter 4 focuses on the recommended development patterns for the geography, and that comes via the 2040 policy map, which is the map that you see on the screen here. And we've just zoomed into the Northeast Inner geography, so you can see that Central Avenue corridor area that you were referencing a moment ago on this screen.
Yeah.
Um, so the colors on this map, they relate to the type and intensity of development that's appropriate within this area. There's a lot more information about the colors and types of development that this map is recommending in the place type descriptions, and that information is located in the appendix of the plans. So I'm happy to navigate to that if you have more questions once we get through these slides. Um, it's also important to note that the plans recommend a large portion of the geography remain as is. So this means if redevelopment were to occur in this area, then we recommend that the new development matches the scale and intensity of what's on the ground today. With that being said, this plan recommends that 24% of this geography evolve into a different type of development than what exists today. So that targeted amount of change will help accommodate the projected growth in a way that respects existing neighborhoods. It pairs well with growth, or it pairs growth with infrastructure capacity and really creates mixed use centers, which will help to increase that access across Charlotte that we referenced in the previous slide.
How did you, if I can just ask a
Of
quick question,
course.
how did you arrive to that 24%? I'm interested.
Of course, of course. So we had quite the methodology in order to map place types because that was a future land use that did not really exist at the city of Charlotte before this effort. So what we did was we looked at the existing land use, what was on the ground now, entitlements, things of that sort, and we compared the existing character, or translated, excuse me, the existing character to the most appropriate place type. So if it was a warehouse, for example, we would have translated it to that dark purple color. It's not really in the Northeast Center. Let me think of a better example. For example, if it was an existing neighborhood that was single family residential, that most appropriately translated to this light pale yellow color, which
Hmm.
that place type is called neighborhood one, and it recommends, primarily single family residential uses. So that translation happened. And then that 24% change means that after that mapping effort was done, we went in and we recommended a different place type where appropriate. And that was mainly in these center areas. So, for example, if this, stretch of the plaza was mapped as commercial based on what was on the ground now, which commercial is mainly auto oriented, along major thoroughfares, things of that sort, we felt
Hmm.
it might be more appropriate to translate this area to neighborhood activity center, which is this lighter purple color, or pink color. And that really encourages pedestrian friendly and oriented development, neighborhood services, things of that sort, because that's the type
Hmm.
of future that we have heard from the community input that we've received, and that was more desirable than auto-oriented uses. So 24% of the Northeast inner geography had some type of change, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for clarifying
Awesome,
that.
awesome. Yeah, thank you. So other pages in chapter 4, they explain how the recommended change of those place types really helps to advance the geography's priority goals and address the greatest needs. So then there's a mobility section within the plan, and this section was developed in coordination with CDOT, CATS, and CRTPO. So those are really, those mobility focused departments and divisions and organizations in the city. So this chapter really restates Goal 5 of the comprehensive plan, which speaks to safe and equitable mobility across Charlotte. This section also includes a clip of the citywide streets map, which outlines the future cross-section for arterial streets in Charlotte, and then smaller streets are informed by the UDO regulations. And then this section also summarizes the citywide strategic mobility plan and highlights the strategic investment areas within the geography. And then strategic investment areas are really a citywide investment strategy for maximizing the city's limited investment dollars in an efficient and impactful manner. So the mobility section also includes a new level of guidance called the mobility assessment. So this assessment evaluates how well our future mixed-use places are meeting the aspirations identified throughout community input and through the comprehensive plan and through this process. So these assessments, they should be really used by all stakeholders, whether it's residential or residents, developers, city officials. We encourage all stakeholders to use it. That way it can inform future development and infrastructure projects within these geographies. So an example of that would be if a developer wanted to rezone a site with one of those or within one of those mixed use locations, like that neighborhood activity center area that I mentioned a moment ago. We really encourage them to use this mobility assessment to propose a project that would improve the conditions of the area. And then similarly, if a community member wanted to evaluate one of those proposed projects against this assessment, they could use that to determine if they felt like that project contributed to the area's aspirations.
Okay.
Um, oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Just a really quick one, right?
Hmm.
So say that there comes a developer and is looking to buys like a chunk of land that you've identified as a place that could be built for more denser development, have more dense development, right? And the developer comes, buys the land, and decides he wants to, I don't know, put like three more Taco Bells in there or something. Like what would be the, I guess, what would be the dynamic between the city, the plan, and the developer at that point? Just I want to know just in terms of like understanding like the I guess the power and the the influence the plan has on development in general.
Of course, of course. So the most applicable example would probably be through the rezoning process,
Mm,
because just to be transparent, if the zoning on the ground allowed for the developer to put three Taco Bells there, they can do that by right legally.
okay.
However, if they are recommending three Taco Bells for an area that we have recommended as again, that pale yellow neighborhood one single family area, we would use this guide or this document as a guide, as well as the rezoning process to kind of assess the appropriateness of that. And
Okay.
we would look to the map and say, I'm sorry, but these drive-through establishments are not consistent with the future land use that we've recommended for this area, that being the neighborhood one. There's also policy in these documents that would kind of um, play into that as well. So we could speak to some of the mobility policies or some of the open space policies and use that as a reference to state a case that says, this really is not appropriate for this area. I will say, all that being said, it is ultimately up to City Council. So the City of Charlotte provides a staff report, and we suggest or recommend approval or denial of a potential development, but City Council ultimately has the final call there. But that's kind of an example of how these documents could play into a future development. Does that answer
Okay.
your
No,
question?
that makes perfect question, and you answered it brilliantly. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll continue, and please again stop me if you have any additional questions.
Okay.
Thanks. Um, Okay, so the open space and community character chapters of these plans, they include similar assessments to the mobility one that I was walking us through a moment ago. But for the sake of time, we're not going to have specific slides that highlight those assessments because they are consistent with the mobility table that you see on the screen here, just
Mm,
more tailored to open space and community character, of course. So if you have more questions about that, we can navigate to that via the document once we wrap up these slides for sure. Okay, so the next section of the plan is environmental justice and sustainability, and that really builds upon the comprehensive plan's vision to reduce environmental impacts across Charlotte. So this section provides a more detailed analysis of the environmental impacts within the plan geography, and it also introduces heat impacts as a new environmental metric that should be considered in future decision making. So I'll pause there, but also want to note that there's also an implementation section in the community area plan, and that provides additional specific strategies for various partners and agencies that want to advance this work. The implementation section also contains illustrative concepts that we've worked with partners to develop that help to provide visualizations for areas that we recommend change. And it just kind of helps put some visuals behind how that area may evolve over time. There's also a program guide and an appendix, and these are also available for review. And that's really where you can find a lot of background information that will support the content and the data that's within these plans.
okay.
And then just a few notes for after adoption. So we want to, remind everybody in the community that these plans are intended to be implemented in multiple ways, which you can see on the screen there. Second, community area plans are an important component of the City of Charlotte's planning framework, but they're not the only tool within our toolbox. So there's other things that are in the works, and we are excited about the future, which will likely contain something called specific plans, and that will focus on even smaller geographies than these areas, and those will be more implementation focused. So kind of help, determine how we can achieve the goals not only in the comprehensive plan, but in these community area plans. And then finally, just noting that planning is cyclical, so we plan to monitor and update these plans as well as the comprehensive plan every 8 to 10 years. And then before I open it up for any other questions or anything that you want to dig through in more detail, I just want to highlight a few next steps. So we will be taking public comments on the draft plans, and I can send you a link if you would like to look through this plan in more detail and comment. You can provide a comment, as a pin on the plan very easily. So that public comment period actually closes on July 18th. So that's Friday, but there's a few more days if you want to provide any additional input. And then comments and responses to those comments will be posted on our project website on July 25th. We will also be presenting to the City of Charlotte's City Council Transportation Planning and Development Committee on August 4th. And then City Council's decision on adoption of these community area plans is to be determined, but hopefully in the near future. And with all of that being said, I'll pause here. I'm able and happy to pull up the plan if you want to review any specific section. I'm happy to answer any general questions you may have or take any feedback you have at this time.
Yeah, no, well, immediate feedback is thank you so much for presenting it. Like your very clear presentation is very, very informative. So I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Of course.
The second thing is, could we delve a little bit into the transportation side of the plan?
Sure, sure. Do you have any specific? I will say absolutely. I will answer the questions that I can, and then I will also take your feedback and um, comments and log them, and then they will be responded to by our mobility partners. So on the 25th, if there's any questions that I cannot answer, though there will be an answer from the mobility partners there.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I guess like what I have in mind is like understanding the you know how how transportation, specifically public transportation, of course, on this side of like the city, right? How will that be modified, impacted, extended, enhanced by the possibility of having an extension on the goal line, right? If that was a consideration in the craft and development of this plan.
Of course. So let me pull up the plan and we can look through some things that might be helpful, and I'll answer what I can
Sure.
as relates to that. I'm sorry, I apologize for making you dizzy.
No, no, you're doing great. I appreciate you.
These are quite the documents. It takes a minute to navigate to the correct section. Um, so first, I will go back to that policy map. Um, so can you see this? Let's see.
Yes.
Is that helpful? Okay. So I will say the gold line, that is along this Central Avenue area, correct?
Hmm.
Okay, so I think one of the ways that that future um, plan has been incorporated into all of this is the first way, at least, is via the place type mapping. So a lot of the area along Central Avenue was recommended for some type of center, whether that was community activity center. So that's this blue area right here, and that is a really a type of use that encourages mid-size mixed use areas, more dense development, allows for more intensity, and then as well as neighborhood activity center here, which again is that kind of pedestrian oriented neighborhood service mixed use environment. So I I will say that the mapping of Central Avenue did take into account the future of the Gold Line as well as the Silver Line down here, of course. So recommending more intense uses along a transit line was part of the methodology in that mapping exercise. So that's one way that the future of the Gold Line kind of played a role into this effort, higher level. Now, in terms of exact transportation, sorry again for making you dizzy. We'll scroll back
Mhm.
down to mobility. Um, I think, let's see. Um, just trying to find some context for you. I guess maybe, do you mind elaborating a little bit on your question just so I can navigate to the correct area and maybe jot it down if I don't know the answer?
Yeah. Well, so I guess it's not a specific question.
Hmm.
It was just me more like understanding how the two interrelated, right? I mean, granted, the city still needs to like vote and approve for that like the sales tax increase, right? But it seems like it'll be pretty certain, and so I guess it was more of like have you guys in your planning, considered the impacts on what development might look like should that gold line be extended? Um,
Absolutely.
and and I get there you go. I guess I'm getting to my question now, right?
Yes.
And are we encouraging this a similar kind of development that occurred in South End once the blue line was created, or are we modifying the development that eventually happened and making it something that is more, I'm not going to say that matches the historical pattern, but matches what the vibe of Plaza has been.
Right, right. Yeah, so I think again, kind of we really focus on long range planning and the future land use and the place types aspect. So I think, my previous statement is probably my best input that I can provide there in
Mhm.
again, stating that the place types were mapped intentionally, understanding that future transit would bring growth along that corridor specifically, and
Mhm.
mapping it with a place type that would allow for that growth, mapping it with a place type that can support the future infrastructure that will be needed with that growth. So those mixed use areas are appropriate for that type of development. Whereas, if it was mapped as something that we're recommending for lower density single family residential uses, that's not really appropriate given the future that is likely coming. So we tried to map it appropriately while also recognizing the historic significance in that area. Of course, um, you know, trying to preserve existing established neighborhoods as best we can, as well as open space, things like that. But those mixed use center designations were very intentional, given the future for transit along that corridor.
Okay.
And I will,
So
sorry.
sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just going to add, um, CDOT, our department here in the city that focuses on transportation, they likely have more maybe project specific recommendations for that area. Some of that may come from their strategic investment area work that they've been doing, things like that. I know that they have also been taking that future growth and that future transit line into account. I just don't want to speak to the specifics because it's not my area of expertise. But I'll send the link to this plan in the chat, and you can, if you'd like to, dig through and kind of see if any of your questions are answered in more detail in the mobility section. And then
Yeah.
if not, feel free to reach out to us with any additional questions, or we can put you in contact with the correct CDOT representative to speak to any potential projects in more detail.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you.
Hmm.
So I have one more bit of feedback, and I think that will be it for me, right?
Okay.
So if this isn't like the right place for it, happy to be directed wherever, right? But
Okay.
since earlier you were looking for, or one of the intentions for this is to elicit feedback from the community, right?
Yes.
Um, as the code line is extended, right, it will no doubt, there will be construction involved, things will be, the central itself will be modified, all these things, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things that I suspect might just be, might just be my own head, it might not actually happen, right? But I suspect what will happen is some of the canopy that currently exists along Central. I think more towards like the edge of this area of interest, right?
Hmm.
But still, might be sacrificed. And so, if this is a good place for it, I would say
Hmm.
it would be great if it weren't sacrificed. It'd be great if that line, since it's going to be like a trolley or a streetcar kind of line,
Hmm.
that it could be done in such a way as to preserve as much of that canopy as possible. And I'll only say so because I'm a resident in the area, right? And it's one of the things that makes Central special is that if you want to do a bike trip or just walk nearby, that you can for the most part count on a very healthy, very mature canopy that can shield you from the sun, especially as the world continues to evolve and things start to get hotter, more humid, all these things, right? It's
Right.
certainly something that other areas of the city don't quite have as much. Thinking specifically of South End here, and how that central corridor specifically is special. So if this is the right place for that, that's I would like to tell this to somebody. That
Absolutely. Absolutely. No,
let's can we try not to sacrifice too much of the canopy, and if we must for construction, right? Could we prioritize the reconstruction of that canopy of those trees?
absolutely. No, this is the perfect place for that feedback, and I noted that I definitely understand your feedback there, and we've heard it throughout the process for sure. So just repeating kind of what I heard to make sure I get the gist, and I will log that comment for you. Just the tree canopy along Central Avenue, it really makes that area special. And with the Gold Line extension, there's concerns that that will impact the existing tree canopy along that corridor, and there's a desire to protect and preserve that tree canopy where possible.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really
Awesome.
it.
Okay, well, great. Well, I will absolutely catalog that feedback, and like I mentioned earlier, we will be. Our team has been very thoughtful in responding to these comments individually, so they will be posted on our project website on the 25th of July. So you'll see your comment, and then you'll also see staff's response to that comment, and if it warrants any action. So if that comment warranted any sort of like change in the document, an additional policy by chance, maybe around that information, any sort of edit, that would be noted as well when we post that.
Wonderful. Well, then I'm looking forward to the 25th then.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining, Roger. Is there any other additional questions I can answer for you, or any help that I can provide while you're here?
Yeah, no, no, no. That was really it. I just came here to get informed and
Awesome.
give that bit of feedback. You acknowledged it, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy that I was able to contribute to your process. I'm happy that you guys are doing this, and just thank you for all your work.
Awesome. Well, great. Thank you so much for your input and for joining us today. You're welcome to jump to another room if you're interested in any particular area of the city other than Northeast Inner. And if not, thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.
Well, likewise, Aaron. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. All
Mhm.
right. Have a good one.